The night air over Ashwood, Pennsylvania, was heavy with summer heat. Yet inside the Ramirez home, the temperature felt strangely cold. 16-year-old Isabella Ramirez sat on her bed, legs crossed, staring at the Ouija board her best friend, Caitlin Walsh, had pulled from her backpack. The board looked old, too old, really. Its letters were faded, the wood slightly warped, the planchette scratched as if it had been used far more times than it should. "Where'd you even get this?" Isabella asked, brushing her long dark hair over her shoulder. Caitlin smirked. "From my cousin. Said it belonged to some college kids back in the 90s. Supposedly. They used it in the old dorm at St. Mary's University before it burned down." The words hung in the air, making Isabella shiver. She had heard about St. Mary's, a fire in the East Dorm that killed 4 students. Rumors said the blaze wasn't an accident. Their third friend, Danielle Foster, shifted uncomfortably, her blue eyes darting between the board and the bedroom door. "Izzy, your mom's working late, right?" "Yeah," Isabella nodded. "She won't be back until after midnight." That left them alone in the house, 3 girls, 1 Ouija board, and a decision none of them fully understood. At first it was supposed to be a game, something fun, a distraction. The end of sophomore year had left them restless, and Caitlin, always the daring one, insisted they do something unforgettable before summer truly began. The Ouija board seemed like the perfect mix of thrill and danger. "Come on," Caitlin urged, placing the board on the carpet between them. "It's just us. What's the worst that could happen?" Danielle bit her lip. "People say you shouldn't mess with those things. My grandma told me your grandma thinks Wi-Fi is the devil," Caitlin cut in. "Trust me, this is harmless." But deep down, Isabella wasn't so sure. Something about the board unnerved her, the way it almost seemed to wait for them, like a predator holding its breath. They lit candles, dimmed the lights, and placed their fingers lightly on the planchette. The room fell into silence, broken only by the distant hum of cicadas outside. Caitlin spoke first. "Is anyone here with us?" "Nothing." Danielle exhaled in relief, but Caitlin only grinned. "Don't chicken out now." Again, Caitlin asked, "Is anyone here?" The planchette twitched. Isabella flinched. "Did you just move it?" she asked sharply. "No," Caitlin insisted, eyes wide. The wooden triangle slid across the board, slow but deliberate, spelling out, "Weiss." Daniel's breath caught in her throat. "See," Caitlin whispered, excitement flickering in her eyes. "It works." Isabella felt her stomach knot. Her hand was trembling, but she didn't lift her fingers. A part of her wanted to stop, but another part, a darker, curious part, wanted to see more. "Who are you?" Caitlin asked. The planchette glided again. Emerarch. The girls exchanged glances. "Mark," Danielle said cautiously. "Do you know anyone named Mark?" Caitlin shook her head. Isabella whispered, "My dad's name was Mark." The candles flickered. Danielle's eyes widened. "Wait, Izzy, wasn't your dad? He died when I was 10, Isabella finished softly. The planchette moved again. Isabella's blood ran cold. Her friends looked at her, stunned. "Okay, no way," Caitlin said quickly. That's not random." "Stop," Danielle whispered, her voice quivering. "This isn't funny anymore. I'm not doing this," Isabella cried, lifting her hand away. The moment she did, the planchette jerked violently, skidding across the board before landing at the letter Z. The room went ice cold. One of the candles blew out, though there was no breeze, and then they heard it faint at first. Coming from the darkened hallway just beyond Isabella's door, a man's voice, soft, broken, calling her name, "Izzy." Danielle screamed and knocked over the board. The planchette spun across the carpet and clattered against the dresser. "Did you hear that?" Caitlin hissed, her bravado gone. "No," Danielle snapped. We're done." They scrambled to switch on the bedroom light, but when Isabella flicked the switch, nothing happened. The room stayed swallowed in shadows, the air thick and heavy. The voice came again, closer. Izzy. This time it sounded like it was right outside the door. Caitlin backed against the wall. This can't be real. Isabella's hands were shaking as she reached for her phone, but the screen wouldn't turn on. The battery had been at 80% just minutes ago. Dead now. The doorknob rattled. Danielle cried out, "Someone's out there." But Isabella knew something her friends didn't. Her mom always locked the front door behind her when she left for work, and no one else had a key. The doorknob twisted again, this time, slowly, deliberately, like whoever or whatever was outside wasn't trying to get in. It was enjoying the fear. The door creaked open an inch, then two. The girls huddled together, eyes wide with terror. In the crack of the doorway, a shadow stretched along the floor, long, distorted. Wrong, it wasn't a man. The voice came one last time, louder now, deep, echoing like it came from everywhere at once. "Easy," and then the candles all went out. The door slammed shut, and the house fell into silence. That was the night it began, the night something followed. Isabella Ramirez, home. The night. Ashwood's quiet suburban streets would never sleep peacefully again. The next morning, Ashwood looked as ordinary as ever. The sun rose over the quiet suburban streets. Birds chirped lazily in the muggy summer heat. And neighbors went about their daily routines, mowing lawns, walking dogs, sipping coffee on front porches. But inside the Ramirez home, nothing felt normal. Isabella sat at the kitchen table, staring blankly at her untouched bowl of cereal. Her mom, Maria Ramirez, bustled around the kitchen, late for work as usual. "Eat something, Izzy," Maria urged, tightening her bun as she slipped on her nurse's badge. "You've barely touched a thing since last night." "I'm not hungry," Isabella muttered. Maria paused, studying her daughter. "You look pale. Did you even sleep?" Isabella shook her head. "Not really. How could she?" Every time she closed her eyes, she heard Itha's voice, her father's voice, calling her from the hallway. Only, she knew it wasn't him. Upstairs, the Ouija board lay where they had left it, shoved hastily under Isabella's bed. The planchette, however, was missing. They'd searched the room, the hallway, even the bathroom. It was just gone. Caitlin and Danielle had left as soon as the lights came back on, both refusing to talk about what happened. Caitlin had laughed it off, masking her fear with sarcasm. Danielle, on the other hand, was trembling so hard she could barely tie her shoes before bolting out the door. That left Isabella alone with the board, with the memory, and with the chilling certainty that something had changed in her house. Maria kissed her daughter's forehead. "You need rest, Mia. Don't stay up too late tonight. And no more scary movies before bed, okay?" Isabella forced a nod, hiding the truth. How could she tell her mother what really happened? Maria already worked 2 jobs just to keep the family afloat. The last thing she needed was to worry about ghosts in the house. When the door closed behind her, Isabella was alone, completely, or so she thought. The morning dragged on. Isabella tried to distract herself, scrolling through her phone, watching TV, but every few minutes, she caught something out of the corner of her eye. A figure standing in the doorway, a shadow stretching too long across the wall, a faint whisper, under the sound of the television. At first, she told herself it was her imagination, just exhaustion, stress. But then, the glass of water she had left on the counter slid 2 inches across the surface on its own. Isabella froze, heart thudding. "Hello," she whispered, though the moment the word left her lips, she regretted it. She didn't want an answer. From the living room came a faint reply. Not words, just a low, guttural hum, like someone breathing in the dark. That afternoon, Caitlin showed up, trying to act casual. "So, last night was wild," she said, plopping onto the couch. "Wild?" Isabella snapped. "Are you kidding me?" "Something was in this house, Caitlin. It said my name. It said my dad's name. Caitlin waved her hand. Yeah, but it was probably you. You know, subconscious movement. Your brain wanted to hear your dad, so the board gave you that. Isabella glared at her. Then how do you explain the voice? Caitlin faltered. For a split second, her mask slipped, and fear flickered across her face. But then she forced a laugh. Maybe one of your neighbors was messing with us. Thin walls. Weird. Acoustics. Whatever. Isabella shook her head. It wasn't a neighbor. It was in the room. Before Caitlin could reply, the TV clicked on by itself. Static filled the screen, loud and sharp. Both girls jumped. Isabella grabbed the remote, but the buttons didn't work. She yanked the plug from the wall. The TV stayed on through the static. A faint figure flickered dark, elongated, faceless. For only a second, then gone. The screen went black. Caitlin swallowed hard. Okay, she whispered, her bravado cracking. That was not me. By evening, Isabella's nerves were frayed. She convinced Caitlin to stay the night, too scared to be alone. Danielle wouldn't answer their calls. As darkness settled over Ashwood, the house grew heavy again, quiet, oppressive. They set up sleeping bags in the living room, lights on, TV muted for background comfort. For a while, they managed to distract themselves with jokes, TikToks, and whispered gossip. But at 2:13 a.m., the laughter died because upstairs, in Isabella's room, they heard footsteps, slow, heavy, pacing. Caitlin's face drained of color. Is your mom home? No, Isabella whispered. The footsteps stopped. Then came the creak of the closet door. Isabella's blood ran cold. She knew that sound. She had lived in that room for years. That was her closet door opening, and then, faintly, drifting down the stairs. Izzy. Caitlin grabbed Isabella's hand, her nails digging into her skin. Please tell me that was your mom. Isabella shook her head, tears brimming. It's not her. They sat frozen, listening. The voice came again, closer this time. Izzy. It wasn't just calling. It was mocking. Suddenly the lights in the living room flickered and went out. The TV snapped to static again. The sound of static filled the air, harsh and suffocating, in the reflection of the darkened screen. Isabella saw it. A figure standing behind them, tall, faceless, its hand resting just above her shoulder. She spun around. Nothing but the smell lingered like burnt wood and rotten meat. They didn't sleep that night. By morning, Caitlin left without a word, her eyes hollow, her skin pale. Isabella didn't blame her. She wanted to leave too. But this was her house, and whatever had been unleashed here wasn't letting go. Not of the house, not of her. The whispers followed her even in daylight now. Faint, almost inaudible, but always there, calling her name, waiting, watching. That night, Isabella dreamed of her father. He was sitting at the edge of her bed, just as he had when she was little. His face was pale, gaunt, his eyes sunken but filled with sorrow. Izzy, he whispered, why did you call me? Tears streamed down her cheeks. Dad, I wanted to see you. I wanted to know you were still here. He reached for her hand. His touch was ice cold. You didn't call me, he said softly. You called it. Isabella's chest tightened. What do you mean? Her father's eyes widened, his expression shifting to terror. It's already inside. And then his face melted away, replaced by the faceless shadow. It lunged at her. She woke up screaming. By Monday morning, the world outside Isabella's window still looked normal. Kids rode their bikes down Ashwood Lane. Neighbors chatted on porches, and the scent of freshly cut grass filled the air. But to Isabella, the world felt darker. She hadn't slept since the nightmare of her father. Every time her eyes shut, the faceless figure appeared, waiting, staring, reaching. When she stumbled into school that morning, classmates whispered. Dark circles bruised her eyes. Her hands trembled when she tried to grip a pencil. Even her teacher, Mr. Harland, frowned when she dropped her textbook 3 times during first period. "Miss Ramirez," he said, his voice sharp. "Are you all right?" Isabella forced a smile. "Just tired." But she could see it in his eyes. He didn't believe her. At lunch, she found Caitlin at their usual table, but Danielle was gone. "She's not answering my texts," Isabella said, setting down her tray. Caitlin avoided her eyes. "Yeah, she's freaked out. Won't talk to me either. She's scared." "We all are." Caitlin shook her head. "No, Izzy. She doesn't want anything to do with us anymore." With this, the word "this" hung in the air like a curse. Isabella's throat tightened. "We have to stick together. If we pretend it didn't happen, pretend," Caitlin snapped, slamming her soda onto the table. "Izzy, something is wrong, and you know it. That board, whatever we did it, followed you." Isabella froze. The cafeteria buzzed with laughter and chatter, but around them, the noise seemed to dim. "You think it's just me," she whispered. Caitlin looked at her, then really looked, and for the first time, Isabella saw raw fear in her friend's eyes. "Yes," Caitlin said, "I do." That night, the house felt emptier than ever. Maria was working the night shift again, leaving Isabella with her 2 younger brothers. They played video games in their room, blissfully unaware of the darkness suffocating the house. Isabella tried to focus on her homework in the kitchen, but the whispers wouldn't stop. "Izzy, I'm here. Closer." She pressed her hands over her ears. "Stop it," she hissed. The lights flickered. Her brother's laughter upstairs cut off, replaced by silence. "Guys," she called nervously. No answer. Her chest tightened. She climbed the stairs slowly, the wood creaking under her bare feet. The hallway was dark, shadows pooling in the corners. The boy's bedroom door was half open. She pushed it gently. The room was empty. Her heart pounded. "Mikey, Lucas." Then she heard it. A faint scratching sound, coming from the closet. Her hand trembled as she reached for the doorknob. "Don't," a voice whispered behind her ear. She spun around. No one was there. The scratching grew louder, faster, like claws against wood. "Stop it," Isabella begged. "Please, stop." The door burst open. Something black surged out like smoke, but thicker, heavier, twisting violently as it filled the room. Isabella stumbled back, choking on the stench of rot. Through the swirling darkness, 2 glowing eyes appeared. Yellow, inhuman. And then hands. Long skeletal hands that reached straight for her throat. Isabella screamed. The boys came running in from the bathroom, soap still on their hands. "Izzy," Lucas shouted. The shadow vanished instantly. The room fell silent, but Isabella was still screaming, clutching at her neck. Red marks burned across her skin, finger-shaped bruises where nothing should have touched her. Later that night, Maria rushed home from work after the boys called her in tears. She found Isabella curled on the couch, shaking, her voice hoarse from crying. "What happened?" Maria demanded, panic in her eyes. Isabella's lips trembled. "Mom, something's in the house. It grabbed me. It's trying to hurt me." Maria's face softened, torn between concern and exhaustion. She touched the bruises gently. "Sweetheart, you did this to yourself. You've been under so much stress." "No," Isabella cried, shoving her hand away. "I didn't. It's real. Why won't you believe me?" Maria sighed heavily, pulling her daughter close. "Because if I do, then I have to believe there's a monster in my house, and I can't. I won't." Her words should have been comforting, but to Isabella, they felt like a sentence, because she realized then she was alone. No one would save her. That night, sleep did not come. At 3:07 a.m., Isabella's phone buzzed, a text from a blocked number. She opened it with trembling hands. The message read, "IZZY, come to me." Attached was a photo, her bedroom, taken just seconds ago. From inside, her closet. The photo burned into Isabella's mind. Her own bedroom. her closet door slightly ajar. The photo taken from inside the dark space, facing outward, aimed directly at her bed. Her skin prickled. Whoever, whatever, had taken it was inside her room just seconds ago. She deleted the image instantly, but it didn't matter. She could still see it when she closed her eyes. Her phone buzzed again. Another message. "Let me in." This time, no photo, just the words. Her hands shook as she threw the phone across the room. It clattered onto the floor, screen spiderwebbing with cracks. The house was silent. Her mom was asleep in the next room, the boys down the hall, and Isabella in her bed, staring at the closet. At 3:33 a.m., the scratching started again, soft at first, barely audible, like fingernails tracing the inside of the closet door, then louder, sharper, faster. Isabella's breath came in short, ragged gasps. She grabbed the baseball bat from under her bed, her knuckles white around the handle. The scratching stopped. She held her breath. Then bang, bang, bang. The closet door shook, violently, as if something inside was pounding to get out. Her scream tore through the night. Maria rushed in, flipping the light switch. "Izzy, what's happening?" The pounding stopped instantly. The closet sat still, perfectly normal. Maria's tired eyes softened into worry and frustration. "Mia, please. You're scaring your brothers." "No, Mom, you have to believe me," Isabella cried, tears streaming down her cheeks. "It's in there. It's in the closet. Please, please, just look." Maria sighed, walked over, and yanked the door open. Nothing. Just clothes, shoes, and a stack of old boxers. "See?" she said gently. "There's nothing here." But Isabella knew better. She could feel it. Watching her. Mocking her. Maria hugged her tightly. "I think you need sleep. Tomorrow we'll talk about maybe seeing someone, a counselor." Her voice was kind, but to Isabella, it felt like a dismissal. Maria left. The light clicked off the closet door, creaked shut on its own. By the next morning, Isabella was hollow. She drifted through school in a daze, her hands trembling, her skin clammy. Caitlin avoided her at lunch, pretending not to notice her. Danielle hadn't shown up at all. In the bathroom, Isabella splashed cold water on her face. When she looked up, the mirror was fogged, though the air was cool. Slowly, words appeared in the condensation, as if an invisible hand were writing from the other side of the glass. "Mine." Her stomach dropped. She spun around. No one was there. When she looked back, the word was gone. That night, Isabella begged her mother to let her sleep in her room. Maria hesitated, but finally agreed. For the first time in weeks, Isabella felt safe-cooned in her mother's presence. The room smelled faintly of lavender and detergent. The steady sound of Maria's breathing lulled her into a fragile half-sleep. But at exactly 2:59 a.m., she woke to the sound of someone whispering in the dark. Not her mother. The whisper was deep, wrong, right beside her ear. "Izzy." She bolted upright, heart racing. Her mother was still asleep beside her. The whisper came again, from the foot of the bed this time. "She can't help you." The blankets were ripped away in an instant, leaving Isabella exposed to the icy air. She screamed, waking Maria, who fumbled for the lamp. The light flicked on. Nothing. Maria held her, rocking her, whispering prayers in Spanish. But Isabella's eyes stayed fixed on the corner of the room, because even with the lights on, the shadow was still there, tall, faceless. Watching. By the following night, Maria insisted Isabella sleep in her own room again. "You need normalcy," she said firmly. Isabella begged, cried, pleaded, but her mother was unmovable. So, with trembling hands, Isabella set up her phone to record. Propped against her dresser, the camera faced the closet. "If you're real," she whispered shakily, "then show yourself." She hit record and crawled under the covers, clutching the bat again. Hours passed. Sleep dragged her under against her will. When she woke, the room was silent. The phone battery had died. She grabbed it anyway, plugging it in. When the screen lit up, the video was still there. Nearly 3 hours long. She fast-forwarded, breath shallow. For most of it, the footage was still, until the timestamp hit 3:07 a.m. The closet door opened slowly on its own. A shadow seeped out, darker than the room itself, and then the camera shifted, as if someone picked it up. The last 5 minutes of the video were shaky, moving closer and closer to the bed. The final frame before the battery cut out was Isabella herself, sleeping, the shadow standing over her, its hand inches from her throat. When Isabella saw the video, she dropped the phone and vomited into the trash can. Her entire body shook violently. There was no more doubt. It wasn't just haunting her. It wanted her, and it was getting closer. By Tuesday morning, Isabella was running on fumes. Her hands trembled so violently she could barely tie her shoelaces. She carried her phone in her pocket, the cursed video still saved. She wanted to show someone, anyone, but the thought of them looking at her like she was insane kept her silent. Her mom had refused to watch it. "I'm not feeding this delusion," Maria had said. So Isabella went to school with bruises around her neck, a feverish look in her eyes, and the unbearable truth lodged in her chest. First period, English class. Mr. Harland droned about Shakespeare, but Isabella couldn't focus. Her head throbbed. The whispers hadn't stopped all night, echoing just beneath her skull. "Kill the light. Take the breath. Mine." She pressed her palms to her temples. The whispers grew louder. Then she smelled it: rot, damp earth. The smell of a grave split open. Her stomach churned. She glanced around, but no one else reacted. Only her. Her pencil rolled off the desk. She bent to pick it up, hand froze. Under the desk, just inches from her face, a pale hand reached out of the shadows. Long fingers, blackened nails. It curled toward her ankle. She screamed, jerking back so hard her chair toppled. The entire class gasped. "Miss Ramirez," Mr. Harland barked, "what is going on?" But Isabella couldn't speak. She pointed wildly under the desk, her words strangled in her throat. Mr. Harland crouched, peered underneath. Nothing. The class erupted in whispers and laughter. Someone muttered, "She's losing it." Isabella's chest heaved, her vision blurred, and then, right there in front of everyone, the classroom lights flickered, papers flew off desks, scattering through the air like startled birds. The overhead projector sparked violently, and Isabella wasn't standing anymore. She was floating 2 feet off the ground, her body arched backward unnaturally, her hair dangling. Her mouth opened, but it wasn't her voice that came out. A inhuman growl shook the room. "She is mine." The class erupted in screams. Chairs toppled. Kids bolted for the door. Mr. Harland froze, white as chalk. Then Isabella dropped like a rag doll, crashing to the floor. The lights flicked back on. The room was still. When Isabella woke, she was in the nurse's office. Her head throbbed, her throat raw. Caitlin sat in the corner, eyes wide with terror. You saw it, didn't you?" Isabella croaked. Caitlin nodded shakily. "Izzy, what was that?" Tears welled in Isabella's eyes. "It wasn't me." Before Caitlin could answer, the door burst open. A school security guard stepped in, followed by Principal Yates. "Miss Ramirez," Yates said firmly, "your mother's on her way. You'll be going home for the rest of the week." "I didn't," Isabella started. "We'll talk about it later." He cut her off, his tone laced with unease. He wasn't just sending her home. He was afraid of her. That night, Maria sat Isabella down at the kitchen table. The silence between them was heavy. The boys were upstairs, the TV blaring to mask the tension. "Your school called me," Maria said finally, her voice tight. "They said you had an episode." "It wasn't an episode, Mom," Isabella snapped, slamming her hand on the table. "You don't understand. I wasn't in control. It spoke through me. It lifted me." Maria's lip trembled. For the first time, Isabella saw fear break through her mother's mask. "You need help," Maria whispered. "Real help. This is beyond me now." Isabella's eyes stung. "You think I'm crazy?" Maria reached across the table, gripping her daughter's hands. "I think you're in danger. From yourself. From whatever this is." Her voice shook. "And I don't know how to protect you." That night, Isabella refused to sleep. She sat on her bed with the bat across her lap, her cracked phone propped up, recording again. The room was still, too still. Then her reflection in the mirror twitched. Not her. Not the way she moved. The reflection blinked twice when she hadn't blinked, smiled when she hadn't smiled. Her heart nearly stopped. Slowly, her reflection lifted its hand, not a wave, a gesture. It pressed one finger against its lips, silently hushing her. And then, in the room, not in the mirror, Isabella heard the whisper, "Tomorrow, I take you." The night of the warning, Isabella didn't sleep. She sat cross-legged on her bed, bat at her side, eyes glued to the closet door. The broken phone leaned against a stack of books, its red recording light glowing faintly. Every creak of the house, every sigh of wind outside, made her flinch. Midnight bled into 1 a.m. Then 2 o'clock. Her body begged for sleep, but fear kept her rigid. At 2:57, the air shifted. Cold, suffocating. The smell of rot seeped in, coating her tongue. She gripped the bat tighter. Her phone buzzed violently against the books, though she hadn't touched it. The cracked screen lit up with a new message, "Time's up." Then the closet door exploded open. The bat flew out of Isabella's hands as if ripped away. Her body jerked upright, spine arching unnaturally. She screamed, but the sound was cut short, choked off by something unseen tightening around her throat. Her feet left the ground. She thrashed, clawing at her neck, her eyes bulging in terror. Her body slammed into the wall, then the ceiling, held there like a pinned insect. Her phone, still recording, captured everything. Maria woke to the sound of crashing. She sprinted down the hallway, barefoot, heart pounding. When she burst into Isabella's room, her scream ripped through the house. Her daughter was suspended in midair, twisting violently, her face purple with strain. "Dios mío," Maria cried, rushing forward. She tried to grab Isabella's legs, pull her down, but her hands passed through something cold, something invisible, that shoved her back so hard she hit the dresser. "Let her go," she shrieked. Tears blurred her vision. The lights flickered wildly. Shadows writhed across the walls like living things. And then Isabella's voice spoke, but it wasn't hers. It was guttural, male, ancient. "She belongs to Ashwood." Maria froze, paralyzed. "Ashwood," she whispered. The entity laughed through Isabella's mouth. The sound was jagged, splitting. She called. I answered. "Now she is mine." Isabella's body slammed into the bed, convulsing violently. Her eyes rolled back, lips foaming. Maria crawled to her, cradling her head, sobbing. "Please, God, please don't take her." Then Isabella stopped moving. Her chest stilled. For one horrifying second, Maria thought she was gone. "No, no, no, no," Maria wailed. She shook her daughter desperately, and then Isabella gasped, sucking in a ragged breath, collapsing into violent coughs. She was alive, but her eyes were wrong. Too dark, too deep. Maria backed away, her breath coming in panicked bursts. "What are you?" she whispered. Isabella looked up at her and smiled. Not her smile, a predator's smile. "I'm home." The next morning, Isabella remembered nothing. She woke on the floor, her throat bruised, her body aching like she'd been beaten. Her mom hovered nearby, eyes bloodshot, clutching a rosary in her trembling hands. "Don't you remember?" Maria whispered. "You were gone. For a moment, you weren't here." Isabella shook her head. "I don't remember anything." But she did remember one thing, a name, Ashwood. It echoed in her mind, over and over, like a curse. That afternoon, while her mother called a local priest in desperation, Isabella sat in the library, poring over the dusty local archives, and there it was, Ashwood Academy, founded in 1876, a boarding school for girls. Shut down after a fire claimed 13 lives in 1901, the building had been demolished decades ago, the grounds abandoned. But the reports weren't just about the fire. There were rumors of a teacher, Headmistress Eleanor Ashwood, beloved by parents, feared by students, whispers of strange rituals, punishments that went beyond cruelty, girls vanishing without explanation, and in the margins of one brittle article, scrawled in faded handwriting, "She still takes them. Even now. Don't let her in." Isabella's stomach turned cold. Because she hadn't just let her in, she had invited her, that night. As Maria prepared for the priest's visit, Isabella stared at herself in the mirror. Her reflection smiled again, and this time, she smiled with it. For just a second. And that terrified her most of all. The priest arrived at dusk. Father Callahan was a small man with sunken eyes and hands that trembled only slightly as he clutched his worn leather Bible. His collar was stiff, his voice quiet. He had the look of someone who had seen more suffering than faith could explain. Maria ushered him in with shaking hands. "Please, Father, she needs help. My daughter. Something is inside her." Isabella sat at the kitchen table, arms folded, eyes down. "Not inside me," she muttered. "Around me." Callahan studied her for a long moment. "Sometimes," he said softly, "there is no difference." The ritual began just past midnight. Candles flickered in the corners of Isabella's bedroom. The air was heavy, oppressive, like a storm pressing down on the house. Father Callahan stood at the foot of her bed, Bible open, rosary swaying gently in his hand. Maria knelt near the door, clutching her own rosary so tightly the beads cut into her skin. Isabella sat cross-legged on the bed, pale and exhausted, but defiant. The priest began to pray. Latin rolled from his lips, rhythmic and steady. At first, nothing happened. Then the temperature dropped. Every candle sputtered. The shadows lengthened, stretching unnaturally across the walls. Isabella winced, pressing her palms to her ears. "Stop it," she hissed. Father Callahan raised his voice, commanding the presence to reveal itself, and it did. The mirror across the room cracked straight down the middle with a sharp snap. From the crack oozed darkness thick, writhing like smoke alive. Maria gasped, crossing herself furiously. Callahan's voice grew louder. His trembling stopped, his words firm. But Isabella screamed, her body convulsed, twisting violently, as though invisible hands yanked her in every direction at once. "Father," Maria cried. The priest pressed forward, forcing the rosary against Isabella's forehead. Her eyes flew open black, bottomless, voids where pupils should have been. And in a voice that wasn't hers, she spat. "You think your God protects her? He never protected them," Callahan faltered. "Them, who?" The entity laughed through Isabella's lips, a jagged, piercing sound. "The girls, my girls. I saved them from the fire. I keep them forever." The rosary burned red-hot in Callahan's palm. He cried out, dropping it. The candles blew out at once, plunging the room into darkness. Then came the screams. Not Isabella's, not Maria's, children's screams. Dozens of them, wailing in the pitch black, circling the room. Maria clapped her hands over her ears. Callahan's Bible tore itself from his grip, pages flapping like frantic wings before bursting into flame. The priest shouted the Lord's Prayer, his voice shaking, but something shoved him hard against the wall, pinning him like a rag doll. In the dark, Isabella floated from the bed, her head lolling unnaturally to the side, mouth whispering in a chorus of voices, not her own. "Ashwood is eternal. She is ours." The lights blazed back on. Isabella dropped to the bed, gasping for air, her body trembling violently. Callahan collapsed to his knees, sweat pouring down his face, his Bible nothing but ashes at his feet. Maria crawled to Isabella, sobbing, clutching her daughter tight. The priest looked broken. "This is no ordinary possession," he whispered hoarsely. "This is anchored, tied to this land, to something older than her." He staggered to his feet. I can't drive it out." Maria's face went white. "Then what do we do?" Callahan's eyes flicked to Isabella, who stared back with hollow exhaustion. "You don't need a priest," he said, voice trembling. "You need the truth. You need to know what happened at Ashwood." Later, long after Callahan had fled the house, Isabella lay awake. The house was quiet again, but she knew it wouldn't last. She turned over and reached for her phone, scrolling back to the video she'd recorded of the attack the night before. But there was something new on the screen, something she hadn't seen before. In the corner of the video, behind her convulsing body, stood a row of girls, 13 of them. Their faces burned, hollow-eyed, their mouths wide in silent screams, watching her, waiting, and in the middle of them, a tall, gaunt woman in a tattered black dress, her face pale, her eyes gleaming with cruel delight. Headmistress Eleanor Ashwood. The library smelled of mildew and dust. Isabella sat hunched over a microfilm reader, her eyes stinging from hours of scrolling through blurred headlines. She had begged Maria to let her stay home from school, claiming she was too sick. In truth, she couldn't face the whispers. The stairs not after yesterday. The machine clicked softly as another headline swam into view. Tragedy at Ashwood Academy, 13 students dead in dormitory fire. She had read the same article a dozen times, but this time she noticed something new. At the bottom of the page, barely legible, authorities found the dormitory door bolted shut from the outside. Her stomach dropped. The fire hadn't been an accident. By late afternoon, Isabella's search had led her to the town's historical society, a crumbling 2-story building tucked behind the post office. The receptionist, an old woman with watery eyes, frowned when Isabella asked about Ashwood. "That place," the woman whispered, glancing nervously around the empty lobby. "Burned down before I was born, but some say it never really left." She hesitated, then scribbled an address on a scrap of paper. "You want answers? Go see Ruth Miller. She's the last one who remembers." Ruth Miller lived on the edge of town in a sagging farmhouse that looked ready to collapse. The door creaked open before Isabella even knocked. The old woman who stood there was thin as bone, her eyes sharp despite the weight of years. "You've seen her," Ruth said, voice gravelly. Isabella froze. "Who?" Ruth's gaze darkened. "Eleanor Ashwood." She ushered Isabella inside without another word. The house smelled of mothballs and stale tobacco. Dust lay thick on every surface, except one table where photographs and yellowed papers were spread in neat stacks. "Everyone thinks the fire killed the girls," Ruth said, lowering herself into a worn armchair. "That's the story the town liked best, easier than the truth." Isabella leaned forward, her hands trembling. "What truth?" Ruth's eyes locked on hers. Eleanor Ashwood was no ordinary headmistress. She believed she could keep her students safe forever. She thought the world outside was dangerous, sinful. She wanted her girls pure, obedient, eternal. Her lips trembled. She made them take part in rituals. They say she prayed not to God, but to something else, something that promised her power. Isabella swallowed hard, and the fire, Ruth shook her head, set on purpose. "They say she locked the girls in their dormitory, but the fire wasn't meant to kill them. It was meant to bind them to her." She reached across the table, grabbing Isabella's wrist with surprising strength. "You need to leave it alone, child. If she's found you, it's already too late." Isabella's throat tightened. "She has found me. She's inside me." Ruth's face drained of color. She let go of Isabella's wrist like it was poison. You have to go to the ruins, she whispered. The academy grounds. That's where she lingers. If you want any chance to break free, you must face her where it all began. That night, Isabella dreamed of fire. She stood in a burning dormitory, smoke choking her lungs, screams all around. Girls pounded on locked doors, their fingernails leaving bloody streaks on the wood, and through the flames, Eleanor Ashwood walked calmly, her dress untouched by fire. She turned and looked directly at Isabella. You're one of us now. Isabella jolted awake, drenched in sweat, the smell of smoke still thick in her nose. On her desk, her phone lit up. A new video had appeared in her gallery, her own room, filmed from the corner near the ceiling. She was asleep in her bed, tossing restlessly, and standing over her was Eleanor Ashwood, her face inches from Isabella's, whispering silently into her ear. The video ended. Isabella didn't sleep again. By sunrise, she had made up her mind. She packed a flashlight, a crowbar, and her phone. The ruins of Ashwood Academy awaited, and she knew. Deep down, she wouldn't be coming back the same. The ruins loomed at the edge of town like a scar that never healed. Isabella stood at the broken gates just after sunset, her breath fogging in the cold air. The grounds were overgrown, weeds swallowing what had once been neat cobblestone paths. The academy itself rose in jagged pieces, its charred skeleton clawing at the sky. For years, kids had dared each other to sneak inside. Most never made it past the gates. Those who did claimed to hear crying, whispers, footsteps that followed them out. Isabella knew the stories weren't exaggerations. She pushed the gates open. The rust screamed. Inside, the air was thicker, heavy with soot, as though the fire had burned only yesterday. Her flashlight beam swept across blackened walls and collapsed beams. The windows were jagged holes, wind whistling through them in mournful sighs. Every step echoed, and then she heard it, a laugh, high-pitched, childlike. It darted through the halls, like a shadow, teasing, mocking. Isabella gripped the crowbar tighter. I'm not afraid of you, she whispered, though her voice shook. A door slammed down the corridor. Her flashlight flickered. Whispers rose around her 13 voices, overlapping, begging, screaming, help us, don't leave. It burns, it burns, it burns. Isabella pressed forward, her heart racing. She knew she was being led, pulled deeper into the academy's remains. She found the dormitory by smell before sight, the stench of burned wood and melted. Iron was strongest here. Her flashlight beam caught blackened bed frames, lined in neat rows, twisted by heat. Charred dolls sat upright, on scorched pillows, untouched by time, and in the middle of the room 13 girls. They stood in a circle, faces blistered and peeling, hair singed, eyes milky white. Their mouths opened in unison. A chorus of screams filled the air. Isabella clamped her hands over her ears, but the sound drilled straight into her skull. Stop, she shouted. Please. The screams cut off, and one of the girls stepped forward. Her lips were blackened, cracked. She stared at Isabella with eyes that seemed to recognize her. Save us. The others joined in, voices overlapping, a desperate chant. Save us, save us, save us. Isabella's vision blurred. Tears spilled down her face. How? She cried. How do I save you? The girls pointed Dot to the far corner of the room. A figure emerged from the shadows, tall, skeletal, draped in a charred black dress that moved like smoke. Her face was pale as ash, her smile cruel and sharp. Eleanor Ashwood. The headmistress's voice filled the room, low and commanding. They are already saved. They are mine, and soon, so will you be. Isabella staggered back, but Eleanor glided forward, her feet not touching the ground. The girls shrank behind her, their hollow eyes pleading silently with Isabella. You don't belong to her, Isabella, whispered her voice cracking. You're trapped. She's lying to you. Eleanor's smile widened. Lying. She tilted her head. I gave them eternity. I gave them safety. And I will give you the same. Her hand reached out, fingers impossibly long, curling like talons. Isabella swung the crowbar. It passed straight through Eleanor's body, the metal clanging uselessly. Against the wall, Eleanor's laughter filled the dormitory, shaking the walls. You cannot fight me, child. You carry me already. You breathe me. I live in your skin. Suddenly, Isabella's flashlight shattered, plunging the room into darkness. She was blind. Screams rose again, 13 voices. Eleanor's laughter behind them, hands dash cold, brittle, like bone grabbed Isabella from every direction. Fingers clawed at her arms, her hair dragging her down. She thrashed, shrieking, swinging wildly in the dark, and then silence. The hands released her. A single candle flared to life at the far end of the dormitory. It burned on top of a blackened desk. Carved into the wood was a symbol, a circle of 13 smaller marks, surrounding one larger, jagged shape. The sight of it made Isabella's stomach churn. Eleanor's voice whispered behind her ear, "Kneel, accept, and you will never be alone again." Isabella's breath came in sharp, panicked gasps. She stared at the candle, at the symbol glowing faintly in the flame. And somewhere deep inside, a thought surfaced. Not her own. It would be easier if you just gave in. Isabella dropped the crowbar. Her knees shook as she sank slowly toward the floor. The girl's hollow eyes, watching, Eleanor's cold smile widening. The candle flame swelled, filling the room with unnatural light, and as it did, the walls began to vanish, replaced by fire in endless inferno, swallowing everything she was no longer in the ruins. She was inside the fire itself. The night Ashwood burned. The world burned. Isabella staggered through smoke and flames, coughing, eyes watering. Around her, the dormitory was whole, again but consumed by fire, alive with the screams of the 13 girls trapped inside. They beat against locked doors, clawed at the windows, their skin blistering in the heat. The air reeked of smoke, hair, and flesh. And through it all, Eleanor Ashwood walked calmly, her black dress untouched by the inferno. "Welcome," she said, her voice carrying like a hymn through the chaos. "This is where it began. This is where it ends." She extended her arms, embracing the fire as if it were her creation. The girls turned their charred faces toward Isabella, their mouths opening in unison. "Save us." Isabella's chest tightened. She could barely breathe, every instinct telling her to run, to escape. But there was no escape. This wasn't the past, it was a prison, one she had been pulled into. "You don't have to stay here, Isabella," shouted her voice hoarse. "You don't belong to her." Eleanor's smile sharpened. "They belong to me, because no one else came. When the world turned its back, I gave them eternity, and I will give it to you too." She reached out again, her fingers stretching, ready to claim Isabella's soul. But this time Isabella didn't retreat. She remembered Ruth's words. Face her where it all began. If Eleanor had bound the girls through ritual, maybe she could be broken the same way. Isabella's eyes darted around the room and there it was, the blackened desk with the carved circle, the symbol glowing faintly through the smoke, the anchor, the mark of the binding dot. Eleanor followed her gaze, and for the first time, her smile faltered. "No," she hissed, her voice losing its calm. "You cannot touch it. You are mine." The girls began to scream again, their cries a wall of pain that rattled Isabella's skull. Her body shook, every nerve screaming at her to collapse, but she pushed through the flames toward the desk. Eleanor lunged, her figure stretching unnaturally, her hands twisting into claws. Isabella grabbed the candle and slammed it onto the symbol. The flame roared to life, white-hot, searing brighter than the fire around it. The desk shook violently, the wood splitting. The symbol burned away. The girls' screams shifted no longer of pain, but release. Their bodies ignited in blinding light, their faces softening, their eyes clearing of the milky haze. One by one, they smiled through the fire. "Thank you," whispered the girl who had first spoken to Isabella, and then they were gone. Ash, smoke, silence. Eleanor shrieked, a sound like tearing metal, like the earth itself breaking, her body twisted, her face warping, collapsing in on itself. The fire consumed her dress, her hair, her skin. "You think you've won?" she spat, her voice splintering. "You've only opened the door wider." Her form disintegrated into black ash. Carried away on the smoke, the fire collapsed with her. Isabella fell to her knees on the cold, ruined floor of the real dormitory. The flames were gone, the girls were gone, and the silence was crushing. Her chest heaved. She had done it, or so she thought. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. With trembling fingers she pulled it out. The screen lit up on its own, a video already playing, her in the ruins. Just moments ago. But behind her, where Eleanor had stood, the figure was still there, watching, smiling. The video ended with Eleanor's voice. Faint, but clear. "You freed them, but you are mine." Weeks later, life went on. Maria visited Isabella in the hospital, where she recovered from smoke inhalation and exhaustion. The doctors couldn't explain the burns on her arms, shaped like long skeletal fingers. She claimed she didn't remember much, and the town was eager to let the story die again. But at night, when the lights went out, Isabella still heard whispers. Sometimes, she woke to find soot on her bedsheets. The smell of smoke thick in the air, and once, just once, she caught her reflection in the mirror, smiling when she wasn't.